tonight is, do we know or are we ready to understand the amount of monstrosity that lies within the heart of those people? If they did this to their own, imagine what they did to our people. So that's a mouthful of a prompt, but you guys get the idea. This comes with a video. Let's check it out.
When someone speaks of the crimes of the Nazism, by default, others think of the gruesome death camps like Auschwitz, Majdanek, Buchenwald, the mass shootings and executions of tens and hundreds of thousands of innocent people. But few realize that the worst Nazi regime was in fact not German, but Croatian. After Yugoslavia collapsed under the blows of Hitler's and Italian forces, the independent state of Croatia, NDH, was established on the territory of Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina. The head of the newly created state was Ante Pavelić. It may seem strange, but even the most bloodthirsty Nazis fainted at the horrors of the Ustašas, who were radical Croatian Nazis. The grim results of the NDH. During the existence of the independent state of Croatia, over 2 million Serbs alone were exterminated. Serbs as well as Jews and Roma in the NDH were initially declared outlaws. Dozens of concentration camps were established on the territory of the state, the worst of which were Jasenovac, Zadovno, Starija Gradiška, and Slano. In the latter, more than 10,000 Serbs were exterminated. In Starija Gradiška, 60,000 women and 20,000 children under 12 years old, and in Zadovno, 75,000 people. But the Jasenovac concentration camp stands apart, since more than 700,000 people were exterminated here. 500,000 of them were ethnic Serbs, and the rest were Jews and Gypsies. But if anyone thinks that the mass extermination of people took place according to the experience of the German Nazis, this person will be surprised to get to know the truth. Nowhere else were there concentration camps where the youngest prisoner of all, if being more precise the prisoner thrown into the camp, was not even 2 months old. As well as nowhere else were they forced to drink the blood of murdered prisoners and then kill those who drank that blood. In just this camp alone, 1,300 children were gassed alive in one single day. Souvenirs for oneself and others. The most horrible was, of course, the Jasenovac concentration camp, but the experience from there extended to other camps of the independent state of Croatia. What you will hear now is extremely mind-boggling. The Ustašas loved to poke out the eyes of the prisoners who were still alive. They did not just poke them out, but carefully put them in baskets. There is a documented conversation between Ante Pavelić and an Italian interviewer, to whom the leader of the NDH showed a basket filled with something that resembled shellless oysters.
Are these the oysters?
Interviewer's question.
No.
Pavelić replied.
These are eyes of Serbs, 20 kilograms, a gift from my faithful Ustašas.
The eyes became the material for the beads worn by Ustašas. And not just eyes, some wore belts of human skin, to which they attached severe tongues. Apart from gruesome so-called souvenirs for themselves, the Ustašas sent these gifts along the Drina River and to others. Thousands, literally thousands of dismembered male, female, and children's heads with notes to Belgrade, to King Peter, and meat to Belgrade markets were thrown into the water. Serbo-cutters and Serbo-sex. The Jasenovac concentration camp was the place where truly many methods of killing people were tried. The most horrific invention was the so-called Serbo-cutters, a specially devised instrument that allowed the throats of as many prisoners as possible to be cut. At the same time, the Serbo-cutter was designed so that the executioner would not be tired for a long time. This killing device looked like a leather gauntlet with sickle-shaped blades fixed to it. And there were even competitions among the executioners, the so-called Serbo-sex, who would slit more throats. There was specifically one man, Petar Bizica, who was the unbeatable champion in this kind of activity. During only one night, August 29, 1942, he slit the throats of 1,360 prisoners. The so-called champion received from his superiors a gold watch, a little piglet, a lot of wine, and silver dishes. Death as salvation. But death by serbo-cutter can still be considered relatively humane compared to other methods, and not all unfortunate prisoners were lucky enough to lose their lives so quickly. The Ustashas liked to cut off heads, at first with axes and sabers, but later they switched to sawing off heads with two-handed saws to torture the victim for as long as possible. Other favorite methods included cutting the skin and putting salt or mud in the wounds so that the prisoner would die long and slowly from infection. The Ustashas burned their genitals with fire or simply tore them out, as they also tore out the fingernails of prisoners. In addition to their eyes, prisoners had their fingers and toes, ears, noses, and tongues cut off. Sons were forced to rape their sisters and mothers, and then the rapists had their genitals cut off and given to their mothers and sisters to eat. Those who were relatively lucky got an awful needle through the heart, and those who weren't lucky were suspended by the ribs from a hook, and afterwards a long and painful death awaited them. One of the most favorable types of execution was to put a rat on the stomach and cover it with a metal lid. Then the lid was gradually heated until the animal, seeking shelter, chewed through the prisoner's stomach. Prisoners were drowned en masse in the Sava River and in the sewers that flowed into the lake, which was the only heater of water for the prisoners, causing many to die of corpse poisoning and outbreaks of various epidemics. The camp had a so-called death poplar, to which prisoners were stapled with nails. But that's not all. It is a documented fact that one time 160 prisoners were herded into a barracks and locked up for weeks without food or drink. When the barracks was reopened, only a few people remained there, eating their dead fellows. In addition to the serbo-cutters, serbo-hammers were invented to smash the heads of the prisoners. And the brick kilns were converted into crematoriums, in which the dead and the living were burned. In winter, prisoners were stripped naked, doused with water, and locked in a barracks, where everyone gradually died of frostbite. During the construction of the Zagreb-Belgrade Railroad by prisoners, more than 10,000 people died. When prisoners were exhausted and fell, they were walled up alive in the railroad embankment, which is still called the Embankment of Death today. Son of Satan. This nickname was given to Miroslav Filipovich, a crazy, there is no other way to describe him, priest, who demanded that his wards kill everyone, especially the children. He loved to find relatives among the new arrivals and make them beat each other to death. The executioner's second hobby was to take son away from his mother and toss him up 3 times, and the 4th time the unfortunate baby landed alive. The third favorite pastime, the Yasenovich devil, this was Filipovich's second nickname, was giving the wax, putting a sharpened peg in the prisoner's mouth and hitting it hard with the butcher's butt. By the way, when the NDH reported that 68,000 Jews had been sent to Germany and then cancelled the shipment since all had been exterminated on the spot, the Germans did not believe it. They even sent a special commission to the Yasenovich concentration camp to make sure all the Jews of those 68,000 were executed. The son of Satan decided to demonstrate to the guests the principle of the serbo-cutting machine as well. Note that the commission consisted of SS officers, not institute ladies. But during the demonstration on the 12 prisoners, one of the SS executioners fainted from what he saw. At the same time, the commission was shown the breathing graves. This method of killing was not used anywhere else. Prisoners were placed densely in a growth pit and then buried alive. For several days, the earth in the grave would breathe. It was exactly the son of Satan in Stara Gradiška who supervised the mass exterminations. The son of Satan associates. There were many of them, but the most famous among them are a few. The first was Zvonimir Brikalo. He loved to cut the throats of children, invented and was the first test pilot of the serbo hammer. On the first day, when Brikalo was demonstrating the new weapon, a total of about 3,000 people were killed by the serbo hammer. More than 500 of them were children. The second is another madman, Dionysius Yurichevich, to whom these words belong.
Today it is not a sin to kill anyone. If he disturbs our Ustasha regime, I will take in my hand and shoot everyone who will oppose the state and the Ustasha authorities.
Do your thing. The history of this camp also knows a unique case in which old Vukashin refused to praise the leader of the NDH. His ears were consecutively cut off, his nose was cut off, his eyes were gouged out, and at the end he said only one phrase to his executioner, Nedo Zetsu. Boy, do your thing. The enraged Ustasha man cut out the old man's heart and threw him into a pit, but he himself later wrote in his diary, I couldn't kill anymore. Petar Brzitsa won the bat by slaughtering 1,360 prisoners, and I silently paid him the forfeit. Since then I have had no peace. At night there is no sleep. As soon as oblivion sets in, I see the old man's clear gaze again, and hear that unbearable, boy do your thing. I am turned into a lump of terror and pain. I am powerless against this nightmare. Day and night I am haunted by the calm face of Vukashin of KWAZ. Subscribe to this channel for more videos and leave a like.
All right. Do we know, or are we ready to understand the amount of monstrosity that lies within the heart of those people? If they did this to their own, imagine what they did to our people. So the idea there is, look at that video, not to sympathize with these other folks here, but to look at that and to say, hey, if you could do that to someone who looks like you, imagine what you would do to someone who doesn't. So let's comment on it from that aspect, I guess. We'll start off with Tanzan. Tanzan, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we really don't realize how horrible the world is out there, and yeah, I mean, people don't really care much about sometimes it's not just about their own people. They can do that to their own women. They had women hung
Yes.
up. They used to have public executions. In fact, a lot of the things that we saw them practice in the South, they had already practiced in Europe and in other places, because that was just a precursor. So yeah, we really sometimes don't see the enormity of really what's out there. And yeah, and even these people who are coming in, you don't know what kind of places they're coming from, what kind of experiences.
And
I don't know if
yeah,
that's
even the people who are coming.
Is that me?
No, that was Uzuli. Continue, Tan. Finish it.
Okay. Yeah. So that's it. I'm just saying that we don't know what kind of things they've been through, and yeah, sometimes we do tend to underestimate it. So yeah, it's not always the hatred is not always directed at us. They have done this to themselves as well. Yeah, that's all.
Real Black Gentleman, you're back. What say you to this?
I only called it halfway. I guess it's some Nazi you know what I'm saying, some behind the scenes about some of the officers or whatnot, what they did.
Yeah, some different murder tactics they use on people who look like themselves, essentially.
Yeah, the whole Nazi thing, yeah, that's the extreme of what happens, you know what I'm saying, when you people are really uncritical about, you know what I'm saying, what's going on, they're lazy, and that I could say that could happen anywhere, but I mean with Germany, they were, you know what I'm saying, they had already lost, you know what I'm saying, in World War One, and they had to pay, you know what I'm saying, they had to pay back, you know what I'm saying, all the rest of Europe. That's wild. I mean, it's almost like as black people, like for black people, you almost wouldn't really care. Except he did kill black people too. Hitler, you know what I'm saying? That regime killed black people. They, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? The fucking brunette Hitler wanted blonde hair, blue eyed, you know what I'm saying, people. That was the master race. You know what I'm saying? That irony is not lost on people. The whole Hitler was a whole brown headed dude, and like his whole idea of a perfect world didn't look like him. You know what I'm saying? Like, them Nazis was wild. It's like you could almost like say that, like, as far as like a, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying, a black American, it's like, you know what I'm saying, like you could almost be like, well, it didn't matter, but you don't want it to be like this war machine that kind of just like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you kind of have to go after them. If I had to pick between fighting the Japanese or fighting, you know what I'm saying, Germany, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and fight some Krauts. I mean, it seems like, you know what I'm saying, I mean, now we're gonna talk about these Jews, right? You know what I'm saying? That again, you know what I'm saying, that as far as black people, and once again, I mean, you can talk about the differences of Judaism, but it's kind of like, well, damn, do we really gotta help you out? Do we really gotta go over there and polish up all this for you? Because I mean, it's like, when you think about it, it's like black people haven't gotten anything out of the whole, like, fighting. Even though I just said, if I have to make a choice, it's like, what do we get out of it? We have to, like, black people wind up having to like agree with like funding back Europe again after they fight over there. Black people still don't get any kind of benefits. And one of the biggest victims, you know what I'm saying, and through, you know what I'm saying, through the voice of Israel, doesn't really, recognize black people. You know what I'm saying? Israel is the most ungrateful, you know what I'm saying, state in terms of black people and what they're trying to do. And, black people in America, considering that, a lot of black people fought hard, you know what I'm saying, had to go in there and run through Europe and just to, liberate territory and whatnot. I mean, this is goofy. It's like I'm because I'm human, I see what it is. That's one of those things where you can't say, let's say, for example, if you're going to talk about like a lot of people killing each other, you know what I'm saying, in a short period of time, you can't really compare what happened in Germany to, you know what I'm saying, the Hutus, you know what I'm saying, or like the Biafrans. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's like the coldness of the way Germany did it, and the way the Jews just kind of like didn't think that Germany was on that type of time, is different than when, the Biafrans were basically starved out in war, or how the Hutus, and the Tutsis, they just like were instigated by France more or less, and kind of just like it got crazy all of a sudden. And you know what I'm saying? That Germany did not have to do that. That's not like the normal course of events, because it's just like they really just, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to take up too much time. I've said plenty. I'm gonna pass the mic.
All right, thank you for that, real black gentleman. Brother Tazzy, what say you to this?
Hello. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to first of all, let me just quote another African scholar or an academic. Her name is Professor Wandia Njoya. She's a professor of literature in the Daystar University, which is located in Nairobi. But I have to quote these guys because, man, I love them. I love African intellectuals. So in what she says, she talked about the Nazis actually, and she said that the only reason Nazis are considered evil is because they did what Europeans were doing to Africans, but they did it to white people. That's why Nazis are evil. But these things they did, they were doing it even way before. They were experimenting in Africans, like in Namibia. The Germans were doing that. Everybody knows what the Congo in the Belgium did, even the British in Kenya. So all these guys, what they did to other white people, they were doing it to Africans before they did it to white people. And that's why Nazis are considered evil, because they did, what was considered to be done for the people of color, but now they did it against the Jews. And so it was just a very interesting quote that she put. So to me, yeah, I have an idea, and I think Africans have an idea of how evil the Mzungu is basically. But yeah, I think I'll leave it to somebody else to say. That's all I have to say.
All right. Let's welcome in the sister Lero this week. Lero, how are you this week?
I'm good. How are you and everybody else as well?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there.
Hey, Lara, how come you don't come in on the conversation on economy? You come in on this conversation with the murder and the blood and the guts.
I was, it's funny because I actually wanted to. I wasn't able to at the time, but I did want to chime in on that conversation. I was typing.
See how they treat dark skinned people, Koku? See how they treat dark skinned people?
I hear you. So what say you, Lero, to this prompt?
But no, I think really when it comes to like white on white crime, Europeans, committing crime against other Europeans. I think it really goes back to like kind of like their culture of intolerance. And, some would even say that like their development of like weaponry was due to the fact that they had so many conflicts, from ancient times to modern. And so that's how they improved, their weaponry development, how they got guns before everybody else. And we're thinking kind of on, just kind of had that line of thinking due to just their interactions of violence with one another before they even implemented the act of violence on the rest of the world. But as far as like imagine what they did to our people, I mean, we know already. Like, you know what I mean? That's one thing too that I find like we always talk about like, the trauma of it all and less about like the purpose and the principle and like what was being built like behind that trauma. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like, focusing too much on like, oh, they fed our babies to alligators and things like that, like, absolutely horrible. But we're facing extinction right now all the time, and so it's just kind of crazy to me, but it's nothing to put past them. Like I said, what Belgium did in Congo and things like that were far worse than what the Europeans did to each other. Everybody's done things to each other. You even today, you can go catch a good Telegram thread and see what these Mexicans and Brazilians is all doing to each other, in the drug game. And even unfortunately sometimes in the continent, you see, a lot of these jihadists and things doing some horrible, sickening things to one another. We, of course, in the hood all the time, do things to one another. I think, violence is more than just about like, that whole white on white crime and black on black crime. It doesn't exist because, I'm not going out and killing nobody because they're black. It may have been a dumb reason, doesn't justify the reason, but we're not killing each other because we're black. But whites have had committed atrocities against other races, due to their race, and the whole construct in itself. So I don't know. That's kind of really all I got to say on that subject.
I appreciate you, Lara. I appreciate you coming through tonight as well. In the chat, Marcus Garvey is the way is out there. She says, if we can imagine the worst thing, times it by 10, because we were being tame in our imaginations. With that, let me throw it to gas them up. Gas them up. What say you?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know too much about. I knew about some of it with, I think, they're talking about the Serbians and all that. I'm not surprised, the guy was saying about the throat cutting machine. It sounded like, an infomercial, the robo cutter, for 1995, it cut your grass, handheld. So, this is how, dangerous these people are. They take these military technologies and then they find use for them for everyday life. The internet is military technology, right?
Yep.
So, but for me, I look at it from the occult. A lot of these murders were done as a form of sacrifice to the gods of industry, so that people could develop. When you look at the United States, so-called Washington, D.C., New York built on the African burial ground, so African dead bodies there. London has the catacombs. Paris is built on dead bodies, and so a lot of these places of high finance have a lot of occultism that's occurring. My position, and shout out to Jose, he gave me that information. You know, Jose, him being in Europe, he has and his ability to speak their language, he has a lot of insight. One of the things he when he pointed out to me that the word Holocaust means sacrifice, and I was like, wait a minute. And then I went and checked it. I said, oh, okay. So my interpretation was that because when you look at the so-called German machine, right, you know, they never saw anything like Hitler and that Nazi regime, National Socialist regime. They developed economically so fast. They built their military so fast and so quick, and they just took over, and no one had ever seen it, you know. Um, there's talk that Winston Churchill, you guys can Google this stuff. Winston Churchill was using witches to protect England. There were three witches that he was in tune with. You guys can just Google Winston Churchill and witches and see that, right? It's documented. You guys can also Google the Nazi regime and the occult, right? The Third Reich was, or Reich, however you pronounce it, was heavily involved in the occult. So for me, I see this as forms of sacrifice. The USSR did the same thing, starting with Lenin. Millions of peasants died under him, and you know, Stalin, of course, in World War II. So these people have no problem managing humans to be sacrificed for their gods of industry. These gods of industry demand blood. It's not a coincidence that all these technologies, you know, you look at your USB, it looks like a face. You know, you look at your car, the back of your car lights, they look like a face, right? It's not a coincidence that Siri and Alexa, you know, and so-called AI, they want to feel human interaction. You know, I showed that on a Tanzan show with Zordon and Power Rangers. You know, and so Alpha was getting us prepared for Siri and Alexa, right? And Zordon was the sentient being that had access to this technology. Azuli showed that with the Thundercats, right? And Rita Repulsa, who was the ancient, you know, goddess, you know, we were told to be repulsed by her, and she was bad, and she was using the moon. And so for me, that's how I look at it. These are all deep, dark occultists, and they hide their occultism behind technology. But, you know, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, you guys should be tuning in to the Black Pentagrammers. Just look up the same Gas Them Up channel here. That's the channel for the Black Pentagrammers with Jose and Tanzan. Always a good time tuning into their shows. So you guys make sure to subscribe over there.
Oh, don't forget Yona B and Urzuli as well.
Oh yes, Yona B and Azuli are the honorary pentagrammers, I do believe. So yeah, make sure to check them out. Let's go to Buana Hagaziki. Buana, what say you to everything you've heard and seen?
Yes, thank you, Kofu. Yeah, so I'm watching this video and I'm not really surprised at anything these people do. You know, anyone who have you know just a rudimentary understanding of history would understand that what these people did is child's play to what they did in Africa. It is child's play. You know, I think Tezzy talked about the Herero people in Namibia. That was a prelude to the concentration camps in Germany. That was a prelude to it. You know what I mean? That's how they got an understanding of what to do in Germany. So I mean that for me that is a bigger issue. You know, that is a bigger issue. What happened to them because they were exterminated completely as a people, completely. I don't think there are exist right now that don't exist any Herero people. So I mean, yes, you know, you could say, you know, as a human being, quote unquote, that you feel, you know, sympathetic to what happened to the loss, the life, the fact that lives was lost in Europe, sure. You know, but what about the fact that the Herero people were completely exterminated as a people? As a people. And then when you want to go further, and doing an in-depth study of what these guys did in Africa in terms of child's play, look at what Leopold did in the Congo. Good book on that is Leopold's Ghost. Adam, I think it's Hochschild. I think that's his name. He the things what Leopold was doing in the Congo it was we was, I think Yas mentioned throat cutting these people. Leopold was cutting off hands of children, man. I mean, I can't feel too sympathetic for some Jewish person who may have got, I question the numbers, but who may have gotten murdered in these European countries as opposed to what happened in Africa. I mean, and the thing is with Jews, boy, they such victims. They come to America, they create an industry, they go into industries like Hollywood and the music industry, and then they create this image of the black man of him being the worst gangster ever, worst gangster ever, gangster or gangster. They disrobe him of all humanity because he is just the thug and the gangster, you know, out for nothing but murder and mayhem. They create this image, and Hitler used to say, well, I think it's Hitler, to kill a man, you must disrobe him or take him away from his humanity, call him a name outside of human being. So they call a Negro a thug or whatever have you. So this is why black men could murder other black men on the street because they don't see each other as human beings no more. They see them as something other. This is a prelude to genocide, and I'm supposed to feel sorry that a bunch of them get murdered in Germany. Come on, well, let me don't say that for YouTube. Well, we really appreciate the loss of life, and we don't want to see the loss of life, etc., etc., etc. But these people are not my friends. These people are not my friends. You know what I mean? So what they do to each other has no, for me, it has no meaning or no value for me. It has no meaning or no value. You know what I mean? But I understand the fact that we should understand that what these people was doing in their own respective countries was horrible. But I also understand what they did to people's different societies is much worse. It's much worse. It's times 10. In particular, the people who look just like me, and not only the people who are being who are in position to murder people, but the people who they were murdering themselves, the Jews. So I don't. It's very difficult. Let me put it like that. It's very difficult for me to find some kind of sympathy in regards to what happened to them, because I understand what happened to us is much greater. But I'll stop there to be brief.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but yeah, I think it. I don't think it was posted for the sympathies for them. I think it was just posted to show how crazy these folks are amongst each other, much less us. Did I get everyone except Uzuli? Uzuli, what say you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is not first of all, this is not, those are not Nazis. Those are people from the Serbian, I think the Yugoslavians or whatever. I posted this to show this. These people are doing this to their own people. Are you ready to do that? Number two, these people are doing this, and a lot of people on here are talking about. You see, that behavior is pervasive in their education, their religion, their economy, their whole way of life. So a lot of us want to take a certain part of their lifestyle and be like, yeah, we should do that. But are you willing to do that? Are you willing to push a group of people in the desert and let them starve to death? Mothers, children, and kids. Most of you are not even ready for that life. So a lot of us want to talk about this and that and the third. This is on the army level, and this is on the army level. These people do that to the education, cut through to business, cut through to religion, and whatever the other shit is, love, the so-called love that they created. Let's not look at this and be like, oh, that was back in the days. Oh, and they're doing this to their own. Da, 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 da. Yes, we know they did that 10 times to us, but at the same time, we only compartmented that. Oh, this was just war. No, in the crack era. What's the difference between that and some other stuff? What are those people? What do they call that little cartoon? Like it's like it's the Tasmanian devil. Don't they have like the Tasmanian people? Where they at? The so-called Native Americans. A lot of them got genocided. Are y'all ready for this? Are we ready? This type of savagery where somebody has a son rape the mother and then cut, like, this is crazy. This was in 1940s, 1930s. This wasn't like 200 or 300 years ago. Like, this is crazy. And I'm not saying a loss of life is a love of life, but how could, looking at this, how could you do that to your own people? And these people weren't starving. The people who was doing this crime, they weren't starving. They weren't fighting for food like people claim, or they were caught behind the ice age.
Well, Azuli, I just want to add quickly. For me, and I know you guys don't agree, but my position, when people say they did this to their own people, I believe that these are people who had the Moorish bloodline. See, they don't want to tell us the truth that there was a lot more dark penetration into Europe than they're letting on. Right. When you look at Zwarte Piet, everyone, I talked about, Rome not being a white civilization, Greece not being a white civilization. This was bloodletting. You don't kill your own people. Right. How did they know who, the southern Italians called the northern Italians Germans. Right. So they say Garibaldi didn't unite Italy. He divided Africa. So to me, this was a way of purging out bloodlines. It's not a coincidence that the Russian family, with Anastasia and Rasputin and all these people were murdered. Rasputin, these guys were all into a lot of occultism, mysticism, right? That you can trace back to this old world, Moorish, Byzantium, Oriental, that had infusions of blackness or color, whatever have you, and this was killed. Lenin, millions of serfs killed as a sacrifice. So, you know what I'm saying, Arzuli? Like, you into the spirit world, they're giving blood to these gods. It's like, why are they not looking at that?
But okay, let's say they give him blood to that thing, whatever. So so we should be doing the same thing then?
No, I'm not saying. I'm just showing you, or I'm just showing people that, because people, how did they do this to their own so-called people? These were not their people, and that's why I don't.
Gas, they look alike.
No, but but this is what I'm trying to say. Again, the science of phenotypes, we know, is a very poor science. Right? In Nigeria alone, I can show you, and it's not just one-off examples or small singularities. There are enough people who have straight noses. Gas them up's nose is not, and I'm not saying like, oh, it's a bad thing. I don't have a broad nose and thick so-called Negroid lips. And I'm from West Africa.
But Gas.
You get what I'm saying? No, so I'm just saying like that this, to me, these people are not their people. They're not killing them just willy-nilly. They're doing it purposely.
So you think those soldiers are you think these soldiers are doing that knowingly, know what they're doing? They're not the
instruction. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The people are higher up are, and this is just my occult way of looking at the world, they're under instruction, but the people at the very top know why they're doing this. Especially at that time, there was this attempt, and that's why I say you can look at the Russian royal family. Why were they murdered in cold blood? How did Lenin get to power? Right? The first Soviet republic wasn't in Russia, it was in Germany. Communism, socialism is a German ideology, a Jewish German ideology. What the F does that got to do with Russian peasants or peasants? Nothing. You get what I'm saying? And those Russian peasants have Moorish blood in them. But millions of them just killed, murdered in cold blood. And no one's paying attention to that.
Well, I mean, I could.
Yeah, there is a lot of talk. If we're keeping it real, there was a lot of chatter. You could look back on in certain readings and stuff, because I came across them as well, where these German dudes was going crazy, like, yo, they're fooling us. They're telling us that these are white folks like us, but these are Negroes. Like, the people in that time who really believed that there was that a hustle was being set up. That the enemy within was these people who, you know, on a quick glance look like them, but I guess as Gas is saying, if you look closer, these folks have features that are not, you know, what you would expect of them, so to speak. So there is a history there where people have been talking about, but I think Zuli made another excellent point that shouldn't be lost too. The thought that these people's essence, how they are, who they are, is in every portion of everything that they create. So if you're talking about capitalism and you're saying you're a black, again, no ID, and you're saying you're a black capitalist, well, are you ready to admit that you have this warmonger in you, this bloodthirsty warmonger? Are you willing to admit that? Are you so then are you complicit when, you know, these coups and stuff are taking place where governments are overthrown, people die, and all this kind of stuff, all to protect this system? You know, we can't separate the man from his work too. You know, that's something we have to be mindful of. And are you ready? Last thing I'll say, in combating this issue, are you ready to get down and dirty as much as they do? Because it's going to require some of that to beat this shit up. You know what I mean? It's going to require some of that.
And guys, oh, based on what you said, you saw, if you watched that, you saw there was a priest in there too.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying? This stuff gets deep.
Yeah.
This stuff gets deep. But here's the funny part. That priest is around, but then the popes have always been playing to a black Madonna and a black Christ.
Yep.
I mean, this stuff gets deep. To me, it's deeper than just what they're telling us. I mean, I suspect a lot of these people.
The fingers. Look at the fingers.
Look at their fingers, the peace sign, right? Now, here's the funny part, right? And who adopted that? Nixon. And he was all in the Bohemian Grove. But here's the funny part. I suspect, if you look at, for example, Andrew and Christian Tate, they have black blood in them. I suspect a lot of those Europeans were like Andrew and Christian Tate. They were octoroons and they could pass. And the real Iceman cometh people knew the difference.
Okay. I could dig that. I understand what you're saying. My thing, I understand what I really wanted to say is that, yo, that type of behavior is in all aspect of their dealings. All aspect. Yeah. So
yeah.
Just like Goku just said, a lot of people, I was on Tenzen's show the other day, some guy talk about, oh, he wants to go and conquer this and do this all the time. And other people are like, yeah, come into your own people. Because people are not just going to lay down and let you come do what you want to do. So all the people that was, All the people that talk about, oh, we're against this, we're against, no, you're not. You're a liar, because that type of behavior that they do through here that you see that's destroying lives right now, it permeates through economy, like Gas just said, political economy. They do all of that.
Yeah, it's cutthroat.
So that's what I was saying with that. So
Let me, because my good friend, my good friend is really referring to me. That's okay, and because I agree with with domination like that. But let me say this: I
Kaiser.
believe, and the reason why I believe in that is, I believe that there are many leaders in many African countries that need to be removed, and they're not gonna go willingly. They're not gonna go willingly because they benefit off of the domination and the ignorance and the subjugation of their own people. And when I say they need to be removed, I understand that they're not going to be removed willingly. So they have to be removed forcefully. And when you remove them forcefully, you not only have to remove that individual, you have to remove the people who support that individual for the African state to function effectively. See, when Mobutu was in power, I believe in his forceful removal. Forceful removal. Because he was a kleptocrat. And people who think like him, I believe in their removal. Why? Because they stagnate the rest of the people. And there are many African leaders that exist like him today, not only in Africa, in the Caribbean as well. In the Caribbean as well. But when Maurice Bishop say, I forget the name of the prime minister at the time, say this man have to go, and he have to go forcefully. You know what I mean? He wasn't discussing and having big long term meetings with them. He removed him by the gun.
Gary,
By the
right?
gun. Now he didn't kill him. He didn't kill him, but he had to be removed forcefully. And I believe that episode need to occur for the people to not stagnate but to develop and to grow.
So
Now
then why?
that's my methodology. That's not everyone else's.
So let's say
That's
I
my
agree with you.
methodology.
Let's say I agree with you. Then two questions. One, do we apply that same rhetoric to the United States? And if we do, right, let's say I agree with you, why are Americans, or why was the world so outraged at allegedly January 6th?
Oh, let me say this. I'm gonna say this. I was an outrage at January 6th because I understand that America is a revolutionary country. It is a revolutionary country, whether you want to like to admit their past or not. This is the reason why some of the people back in the day say no taxation without representation to England. Say we don't want a king, and they was willing to fight and die for it. That's why they fight the British. That's why they fight the British, and they was willing to die for that particular belief.
Not 100% true, but I understand.
No, but you understand the context.
No, yeah, I understand. But
Good.
you just
So as long as you understand, yeah.
they lied though, because they weren't paying taxes like the
You
American
understand the
colonies.
context,
No,
guys.
yeah, I get the colonies, but I just wanted to put it out there for everyone. The American colonies were only paying. So let's say Bwana was a British citizen. Bwana was paying, like the full taxes. I was only paying like 30% of the taxes. It didn't make sense. So when you read the British, because we're American bias, when we hear the American side of the story, we think, oh man, those terrible British didn't give them a say in the parliament. But it's like, you cheap motherfuckers were only paying like 20% of the taxes. How the hell are we gonna give you representation in the parliament?
But
you get what I'm saying? It's propaganda. It's like, and that's why after George Washington, and that's why, again, it's occultism, right? Who sponsored it? It was the French, right? With the French Masons sponsored people like George Washington. It was all a Masonic experiment, right? And so when the real rebellion of America, Shays Rebellion, they crushed that because they didn't have any assistance. But it's just ironic that Americans were crying, or they believe this mantra, oh, no taxation without representation. But it's like, hey, wait a minute, you guys know that you weren't paying the full tax. You're only paying like 20%, while the average British citizen was paying the full tax. So of course they had representation. It's like, you cheap bastards should have paid the full amount. Then you would have got representation. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, so the rank and file American citizen didn't feel that way because he wasn't exposed to that kind of information. He just believed that it was unfair that England was charging them taxes where they wasn't seeing their service, well, whatever they needed to have, throughout the society represented as their society. So they didn't see that. And what I'm saying is that there are countries and nations that exist where they pay the full weight, not 20%, but a full weight of what goes on to that in their societies, and they see no beneficial result from it. So what should happen to the leaders of these nations? They should be removed, and they're not going to be removed because you have a civil conversation with them or a better conversation with them. You have to sometimes remove these people forcefully. You have to remove them forcefully and replace them with people who have the mindset, who have the mindset to do good for them people. And unfortunately, we live in a world in reality where the opposite exists. You know what I mean? Because Thomas Sankara, even though he had good ideas for his people or to serve his people, he get a bullet to his brain. You know what I mean? Because we live in a society where we're gonna replace these guys. Might makes right. We're gonna replace these guys with their puppets. You know what I mean? That puppet's gonna exist for our interests, for rich old men's interests, not the people's interests. So these
I
kinds of
agree with you,
characters.
Warner. But then how
But
do we?
I think his name is Campari Blase.
Yeah, Blaise Compaoré. But what I was
Blaise
going to ask you
Campari.
is, how do we
Right.
manage the slippery slope of running into, was it Robespierre, the French Revolution, the terror, right, that happened after the French Revolution? How do you prevent that from happening? You get
and
what I'm
and
saying?
that's it. Yeah, and that's a good example because even with the French, what they did with their leadership, and in terms of what happened afterwards, because there was liberties that was taken place after I think they cut off the king's head, and what's the lady's name who say eat cake, let them eat cake.
Marie Antoinette. She
Mary,
said let them eat bread.
he let
She
them
said
eat
let's eat
bread.
bread. Yeah.
I thought it was cake.
Well,
But
no, they lied, but yeah, she said eat
yeah,
bread.
so there are liberties and there are checks and balances on even the people themselves because sometimes they get ahead of themselves in terms of so-called this idea of justice. So there should be a limit to what the people decide to do. There should be a limit. I agree with that. But
So
good governance,
who sets that limit? Because
and
now we're
and and
sounding like Isaac Newton, right? Who sets the limit?
and that's the thing. And that's the thing. Do we have one individual, saying that this is the limit, this is as far as you should go, you can't go beyond this, or do we have a group of old men? Usually it's old men, it's not women included in that. But do we have a group of old men who is saying, well, this you should stop here. You can't go beyond this point. And we have the force and backing to ensure that the people don't go beyond this point. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I do not know. I do not know in terms of governance for whether you consider to be thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, or millions of people. I don't know what is the proper way. All I would suggest is I think there is a proper way. I think there is, but my correction to the problem is first and foremost, some people need to be removed from power, and that is standard. I believe that should be so.
But
Now, people
but
can consider, well, you shouldn't be so ruthless, you shouldn't be so mean, you shouldn't take out these characters. I believe that these people should be removed. I do. I'm sorry.
but we're not talking. Be removed by people who said they're gonna give them 15%, and then we're gonna say 65%, and then you're gonna give 20% to the. Nah, only your righteous. Yes, people who are like that should be removed. But what I was referring to is that conversation that we had on Ten's show. Yeah, people was talking about come. That person that was talking about colonizing Africa and coming to the Caribbean was a piece of shit.
That's another conversation. Yeah.
No, because you agreed with him. You said, "Yeah, come conquer me." We're not dealing with that.
Well,
So that person that you're talking about that was gonna go to the Congo, take their minerals, give the people 15%, take 65%, and claim he was gonna give the superpower 20%. That's a piece of shit. That's
But
an
Zuli,
unrighteous brother. And you agreed and
Zuli,
said, yeah, oh yeah, come on.
absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And I surprised you don't agree. I
Why would I agree
surprised
with
you
that?
don't agree.
Why would I agree
You know
with
why?
why would I
You know why?
replace why would I
You know
hold
why?
on, let me finish. Why would I replace a piece of shit? That's like, you know what you're doing? So why are you mad at the black officers for beating that brother up?
So we jumping now. We jumping now.
No, no. Everything connects.
Okay, so let me start here. You are the person who is the big believer in who? Killmonger in what do you call it? The Wakanda series. Killmonger is a colonist. He's a colonizer. He's an
No,
African
he's not.
colonizer.
No,
But
he's not.
he
No,
wanted to take the weapons of Wakanda and use that as
Yo,
as
Wano,
as
you
a, to
wildin', bro.
dominate
You
as
wildin'.
dominate
It's
to
not
dominate the
influence.
rest
You
to
wildin'.
dominate the rest of the world.
You
He was
wildin'.
an
You
African
wildin'.
colonizer.
You wildin'.
So I'm surprised you don't agree with me.
No, I'm surprised that
Koku,
you.
do you see how these conversations of Black Power, which are great conversations, but you see how they quickly delve into the French Revolution style, years of terror. You see this, right, Koku?
I'm seeing it. Go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
Nah, I want the Zuli to rock with. I want to go. Go ahead,
No,
Zuli.
you're not really right because you cannot say that's the same thing. One brother said to free the people. That other brother came to do exactly the oppressors did. He was going to do it to his own people. And the claim of technology and the claim of industrializing people. Industrializing people, a lot of people died due to that. A lot of people lost their family, their lands, destroyed. Industrialism destroyed, created, made a lot of animal extinct because of greed. Killmonger,
Zuli.
what
Go ahead.
Killmonger did and what that guy said he wanted to do is not the same thing.
What do you think? See, when you say a lot of people die, right? That sound in the ears of someone who that sound bad. That sounds very bad. But there are people who live online and exploit people. For you to liberate that land, do you think that he gonna just allow you to have that land free and clear to let the people come in to possess that land?
Yo,
For instance,
Mr.
but let me finish. I let you rock. Let me
Oh
finish.
my God,
For
yo,
instance,
wow.
in Zimbabwe, who owned the land? Who owned the land? It's the white boys who own a lot of private land in Zimbabwe. For the people to get that land, don't you think that because they're not going to leave willingly? Don't you think that them white folks gonna have to die for that? They gonna have to die for because they're not gonna just go. So you got to take them off forcefully, them, their wife, and their children sometimes.
No,
I
what
mean,
you're
and for
doing,
someone on the outside looking at it, so why are these people gonna die for their own? I mean, why are you gonna murder these? Well, let me say murder. Why are you gonna remove these people forcefully off of their
yo,
land? Because on the
what
outside, but that's justice. That's justice.
no,
That's
bro.
justice.
What you're saying has nothing to do. What you're saying right now, what did the brother said he was gonna go to the Congo, take their natural resources, give the people 15%. He's not from the Congo. He's from Kenya. He's gonna take 65% and then give the Euros 20%. And then he said he's gonna go throughout Africa, take natural resources and conquer the world and come to the Caribbean. And you agreed. You said yes.
I absolutely agree with that. Now here's why.
No.
Here's why.
I
Here's
don't
why.
need to know what you agree. That kind of
Well,
thinking.
let me say what I have to say, and I'll let you walk. So, I mean,
You're just as
you make
bad
an accusation.
you're
You
just
make an
as bad as
accusation. Let me
Leopold.
defend myself. You make an
No, let me.
accusation. Let me.
Okay, Leopold the
Go ahead.
second, the third. Go ahead.
Okay, you make an accusation. Let me defend myself. So what I am saying is, he said in regards to if his nation is a well-developed nation, that is a productive nation that is moving forward in the world, right? It from my standpoint, from my particular purview, I feel like these nations, these African nations, are stagnant. They're not moving anywhere. And when you say that the idea of 15%, what percentage of them are they getting right now? They're getting 0%. They're getting exploited. They're getting exploited. So to have even at least a percentage of the board, let's start there. Let's start there. Yeah, and then move from there to develop into something else. But as it stands right now, It is stagnating. These nations in the Caribbean right now, these are old plantations, modernized. They look pretty. They put up a nice window. They put up a nice house or whatever. But these old plantations, there's no real human development that's going on here right here. This man trying, if there is suggested that an African nation want to take us into the 21st century in terms of human development, I am with that. I am with that. Because as it exists right now, we still in the 19th century going off of these old antiquated English systems that don't benefit the people themselves. It looked pretty, it looked like development, but it's just a fixed up plantation. And if someone come along to change that paradigm, I'm with that shit. I'm with that. I'm sorry. I mean, it seems evil, but if it's African colonialism, let's go. Let's go. That's where I am with it.
It's not African colonialism because his mental is coming from is a European colonization, masked under African cloak into African. He's not coming from an African colonial point. What are you talking about? He's not. So I'm just saying that. What's the difference between that brother was not coming from that point? And like I said, he could stay there and there. But if he comes to where there's gonna be fighting. Not every country want that industrial shit.
But Erzuli, there's already fighting in Haiti. That's already
not the
fighting
point.
there.
That's not the point. I could be fighting. I could be fighting my brother. I could be fighting my sister. Who the fuck is you to come talk about to get into the fight and beat me up?
No. You're not fighting your brothers and your sisters. You're fighting the UN who impregnating little Haitian girls and getting them pregnant.
Bro, stop it. That guy you talking about, you want to follow? That guy has a European mentality.
I don't know the man. I don't know the man.
Yeah, come.
No, he talking. He is from what I hear. This man is talking about African colonialism. I agree with that. I do. I'm sorry if I'm wrong.
Did you not hear he was making fun of Haitian people? Did you not hear?
He was talking tongue in cheek. He didn't mean that. He was talking tongue in cheek.
Of course he
didn't.
For everyone in the audience who might be perplexed and not sure what's being discussed here. So there was a conversation recently on Tanzan's show. This guy Kaizo, who's in a lot of these, from what I understand, he was in a lot of these kind of Pan-Africanist type spaces. Kenyan guy, but he's from a particular group that I want to say is kind of mixed Arab or something like that. I want to say that. I could be wrong. Anyway, he has some interesting thoughts. If you guys remember when the Matron used to have those late night shows, he was on there that night when a few of us, Erzuli, myself, Kevin Carey 42, a few of us were there. That became the 12-hour-long show. And that's when he said colonialism was a good thing for Africans because it gave them technology, right? So that's kind of how I've understood him. So when I listen to him talk, I kind of understand he's on some fuckery. But that's the conversation that they had on Tanzan's show recently. I would suggest you guys listen to that episode. Real good episode. If it wasn't the last one, it was the second to last one. So this same guy who said colonization was good for the Kenyans, he said that he's trying to create a group that will colonize all of Africa and eventually all of the Black world. And so in that conversation, Bwana agreed with Kaizo to come and colonize even my own hometown. No, thank you. But that's what him and Bwana was talking about. And then
Cool. Is it Kaizo or Kaiser?
Kaizo, I think.
No, I'm playing on the words. Kaiser.
Oh, yeah. Kaizo. Yeah, okay. Kaizo or Kaiser. Either one. And so Zuli was like, nah, don't come to Haiti, etc., etc. So I'm just trying to give you guys a gist of the conversation. But you guys should definitely go check out Tanzan's show to hear it for yourself. Are there any last thoughts on this problem, though?
Real quick. I'm just saying that when this brother wanted to colonize and use European mentality, that's what you're going to be doing to the people. These type of things. So we can't claim this. This is. We look at this. Oh, this is an atrocity. Oh, this is It's terrible. But meanwhile, you want to use their economic blueprint to conquer the world, to conquer Africa, and talk about let me bring it to the Caribbean. What are we doing? That's all.
Wasn't that what Killmonger was doing?
You don't even get what Killmonger was doing. That's sad.
Killmonger was he was a United States military man. All he knows about the United States politics. So what was he gonna do in Africa? But go and do the same blueprint all over the world as hit the people who instructed him.
Bro,
and that's your hero.
That's what to show me that you don't understand. You don't understand what you're talking about. Because Killmonger, his father told him everything. That's why he had the connection to. That's why he was able to go back to Africa. What are you talking about? Did Killmonger say he was going to colonize and the whole Africa? Did he say that? The character said, "I'm going to give you weapons to free yourself from colonization." What are you talking about?
All right, that could be a whole other conversation. We did have a discussion about Killmonger and Black Panther and Wakanda, etc. So you guys could go check out that episode. If you guys want to do it again, we can do that again. But I want to move on to the next prompt. I think I got everyone on this one, right? Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 5. We're going to end at 2 a.m. as we usually do, so we won't get through all the topics tonight that we have planned to, but we'll just bring them back next week.